Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather on the 4th day of February 2021. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first on hazardous weather graphics, we've got winter weather advisories out for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Nunivak Island area. And for the Kuskokwim Delta, that's in effect tonight until 9 a.m. Friday morning. And in the case of the Yukon Delta, that's out tonight into until 3 p.m. Friday afternoon, so a little longer there. And mostly for the coastal areas is where the worst conditions will be along the coast with the strongest winds and the lowest visibilities and blowing snow. But it could pick up maybe 2 to 4 inches of snow with gusty winds, increasing wind tonight as the storm approaches the coast. And that'll knock visibilities down to a half mile at times in blowing snow. And moving up to the north, we'll start with the St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast area. Blizzard going all day today there for the St. Lawrence Island area, especially over toward Gamble. And that's going to continue through tonight until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, in which time conditions will improve above blizzard criteria, or, kick it out for longer. And that includes the Bering Strait coast. And then the other warning areas up there along the Arctic coast, that's for wind chill warnings. Eastern Boulevard Sea coast, wind chills to 80 degrees below zero. And that's for tonight until tomorrow morning, at some point in the day tomorrow morning. And then for the western Arctic coast, wind chill temperatures down to 70 degrees below zero, with winds not all that strong, but 15 miles an hour is the lowest wind speed for wind chills. But again, 70 below zero on the western Arctic coast, 80 below zero on the east side there. And that's through tonight. And then wind chill advisories are out for the northwest interior there, Noatak Valley, along the northwest coast, including Kotzebue, looks like Selawik as well. As the Seward Peninsula, wind chill advisories out for tonight. Wind chills to 50 degrees below zero until tomorrow morning. And that about wraps it up for the watches, warnings, and advisories around the state. Pretty good over the interior, except for the very cold temperatures. And then the Panhandle, same thing, nothing out in the Aleutians or the Bering Sea, although storm force winds will be coming back into the forecast tomorrow for the western Aleutians, pushing in toward Adak and Atka in the afternoon. But before that happens, we have this front along the eastern, or actually south of St. Lawrence Island, stretching southward across Unalaska Island and near the Pribilofs today, with moisture into the southwest coast. But a fair amount of clearing occurred over Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula, but mostly cloudy with some clearing around Kodiak Island, and mostly cloudy in the Gulf of Alaska with some scattered snow shower activity. Otherwise, Cook Inlet kind of clouded over, but the Kenai Peninsula saw a little more clearing. As you head north, you can see from the Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast, white, and that's not clouds. That's because the temperatures are so cold. Umiat Airfield, 55 degrees below zero this morning. They were up to about minus 49 below 3 p.m. this afternoon, with mid-minus 40s on the eastern Arctic coast there. So quite cold temperatures up in that area. And even down into the Koyukuk Valley, 40s below zero this afternoon at Bettles. And then warmer conditions with some clouds and light snow over the eastern interior there, from south of the Yukon River into the greater Fairbanks area. Areas of light snow, anywhere from a half inch to maybe 1 to 3 inches, have fallen across that area in the last 12 hours. And that extends down to about the Alaska Range. Otherwise, amounts pretty light and sparse south of the mountains, and also light there over the southwest interior on up to the north. St. Lawrence Island, strong winds today. North winds gusting, or east-northeast gusting up to 60 miles an hour with heavy snow, and their visibility earlier today was down to 1/13 of a mile in the blowing snow there. So that's going to continue through tonight, maybe some improvement after midnight, with a warning due to end tomorrow morning, as I mentioned. Otherwise, behind the front, you can see some pretty good clearing from about Nikolsky. It looks like it's moving in there until you get to about Adak and Atka. Still some clearing, but then you start picking up the showers. West-southwest winds about 30, 35 miles an hour in gusts. And then the much colder air aloft, or even at the surface there, with snow showers rolling back into Shemya with an increase in the winds as that colder air comes down out of the Sea of AKwx across the Kamchatka Peninsula. Otherwise, the Panhandle, a little bit of moisture down to the south in the form of rain at Ketchikan, that area, southern Prince of Wales Island, but amounts are pretty light today down in that area with really not too significant. A quarter of an inch fell, I believe, at Metlakatla precipitation-wise, otherwise much lighter amounts to the north. A little bit of light snow today in the Juneau area as well as Yakutat, and dry for the North Gulf Coast. On the chart, there's that front near the Pribilofs dragging down across the eastern Aleutians with some areas of rain there. Winds gusting anywhere from 40 to 50 miles an hour across the Alaska Peninsula, Cold Bay, with a mixture of rain and snow over to about Cold Bay. But again, dry conditions over Bristol Bay with a big area of clearing occurred today along and north of the Alaska Peninsula into Bristol Bay. Snow and blowing snow picks up along Nunivak Island, Yukon Delta coast, and really hammering the St. Lawrence Island area, and then eases up as you get into the Bering Strait and to the north with cold high pressure in place over the north slope and the very cold temperatures. Then an area of light snow, kind of a dividing line there from the temperatures that are far below zero up to the north and then not so far below zero to the south there, but areas of light snow again anywhere maybe up to a couple inches over the eastern interior there, 40-mile country up to the White Mountains, and then just some lighter amounts, although Nikolai, I did believe, picked up about half an inch of snow. Snow showers over the northern Panhandle scattered around, and then the rain mostly along into the south of the southeast coast there, Dixon entrance on down. And for tonight, cold high pressure holds over the interior there, maybe some flurries along the Arctic coast, nothing significant. And that area of snow slowly diminishes there along and north of the Alaska Range. And then that system, pretty good system, increases the wind and blowing snow there across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, not so much for Bristol Bay. And conditions gradually improve, especially after midnight for St. Lawrence Island. It'll be slow, though. And the Bering Sea basically dry, kind of a break, and then the next system coming in there toward the Aleutians tomorrow tightens the gradient up enough for storm warnings out Shimei and Attu, probably as far east as Amchitka, with gales coming into the Adak-Atka area. Pretty nice day for the Pribilofs, weak ridging there, and could result in mostly sunny skies, light winds for the Fox Islands. Alaska Peninsula looking good under high pressure. And that low now weakening. Snow and blowing snow changes to snow showers along the coast in the afternoon, with the heaviest stuff over the Yukon Delta, on up into the southern Seward Peninsula area, and then some snow showers extending into the Kuskokwim Valley, clear and cold over the interior again. And for Saturday, chance of rain or snow, southern Panhandle, otherwise not too bad, mostly clear in the north, a little breezy, but not too windy, and some clouds and flurries or slight snow showers for the Alaska Range, and maybe the Arctic coast getting hit with a few skiffs of light snow there due to a weak trough. And that front pushes rain and wind into the eastern Aleutians. Lows for tonight, lower teens to lower 30s for the Panhandle, anywhere from 18 below Copper River Basin to 5 below to 10 above South Central Alaska, near 30 Kodiak Island. And again, 35 to 50 below or 55 below zero North Slope, Northeast Interior areas, minus 30s in the Arctic coast to lower 30s for the Alaska Peninsula. Mid to upper 20s Western Central Aleutians, and near 7 for St. Lawrence Island. Northern Kuskokwim Valley below zero for the highs tomorrow, but milder to the south, lower 30s Northeast Bristol Bay. And near 20 South Central Alaska, mid 30s Kachemak Bay, and mid 20s near 40 for the Panhandle, and well below zero north of the Alaska Range all the way to the Arctic coast. And then highs Friday afternoon, upper 30s for the Aleutians. Lows Saturday morning, below zero Copper River Basin, and 5 below to 10 above South Central Alaska, lower 30s Kodiak Island, mid-teens Northern Panhandle, near 30 to the south, and again 35 to 50 below for the northern and northeast interior, and mid-teens along the southwest coast, otherwise lower 30s in the Aleutians. And then highs Saturday afternoon, 35 to 40 southern Panhandle, colder in the north, lower 20s South Central Alaska, a little above zero the Copper River Basin, staying below zero Tanana Valley all the way out to the Arctic coast to the Seward Peninsula, and shaded up to 5 for St. Lawrence Island, near 40 for the central Aleutians. Let me back up here. Went a little too far there. There we go. And looks like single numbers for the Yukon Delta.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic Friday morning. Some IFR, pretty widespread over the northern Bering Sea. Still St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait, down into the Yukon Delta, Nunivak Island, and from western Togiak Bay, Cape Newenham, on down narrow band there across the Alaska Peninsula. Marginal VFR, Bering Sea. Some VFR showing up over the western Aleutians and the Fox Islands, and a lot of VFR over the interior, with the exception of the eastern Bulverde Sea coast. And the central eastern Alaska range, maybe the northern Copper River Basin, Northway Toke, probably not Delta though, marginal VFR. And the Panhandle, mostly marginal VFR, except Prince of Wales Island, and from about Port Alexander on over to Metlakatla. And for the afternoon, IFR now pushes inland right up to the western Alaska range, across the Kuskokwim Valley, especially northern Kuskokwim Valley, Yukon Delta, IFR, St. Lawrence Island to the Bering Strait, Norton Sound, and the southern Seward Peninsula to about Norton Bay, IFR, and VFR, North Slope, Arctic coast, except over toward Kaktovik, Barter Island area, all the way down to the North Gulf Coast, and you get into the marginal VFR in across much of the Panhandle. Kenai Peninsula becoming marginal in the afternoon. That area kind of lifting northward throughout the day tomorrow. Cook Inlet, about the foreland southward, marginal VFR to Fognak and the east side of Kodiak Island. Alaska Peninsula, central eastern Aleutians, VFR, on up to Nunivak Island, VFR. IFR holding there for St. Lawrence Island, and some IFR starting to push into the western Aleutians. For Saturday morning, that area is a little more widespread out there, looks a little more significant, but pushing north of the western Aleutians with a break behind it, and good solid IFR for Adak and Atka to start the day Saturday. VFR to start the day for the Fox Islands, Pribilofs. Eastern Bering Sea looking really good here, except Bristol Bay, marginal VFR northeastward along and just west of the Alaska Range, Kuskokwim Valley. And then some IFR there, same in Chumana, up along the Denali area, and mostly north side or northwest of the Alaska Range into the interior. And then the marginal VFR cuts off pretty sharply there, say from Kotzebue over to south of the Yukon Flats up to the Brooks Range VFR, North Slope, but IFR there with that upper level low off the eastern Arctic coast. So from about Point Barrow eastward, IFR right along the coastline. Panhandle, some IFR, central and eastern areas, otherwise marginal. And for the afternoon, good VFR, Kodiak Island, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, as well as all the southwest coast. Widespread IFR, though, coming into the Alaska Peninsula, extending westward to Atka Island, marginal VFR, Adak, Kiska, Amchitka, then IFR for Shimei and Attu, northern Bering Sea VFR down along the southwest coast. Just a narrow band of marginal stuff. There's southern Seward Peninsula. Otherwise VFR, Noatak Valley, northwest coast. Marginal VFR for the Arctic coast, IFR on the east side, and marginal VFR, Copper River Basin, Manduska Valley. Susitna Valley looks pretty good. Passes Anatufik and Adigan, VFR tomorrow. Marginal VFR becoming marginal for Lake Clark and Merrill with possible IFR in the western approach if both passes by mid to late afternoon. And rainy marginal VFR. Windy though VFR. Isabel holding good at VFR. Mentesta VFR. Tanita, same forecast. Portage VFR to start, becoming marginal VFR. Probably during the latter part of the morning hours into the afternoon. Chilkoot and White, mostly marginal throughout the day. Freezing levels at the surface north of the Pribilofs, and then south of the, or just west of Adak and south of the western Aleutians, right along the Alaska Peninsula, North Gulf Coast, right down across the Panhandle. 2,000 feet, though, just off the coast of Prince of Wales Island. Icing, some moisture may bring a slight chance of some isolated moderate rime icing, mostly to the coastal areas of the Panhandle, and then some mixed icing possible of the light variety, nothing really significant there. Western Alaska Range back across the northern Bering Sea. A little bit more significant icing trying to push up into the western Aleutians. Jet stream, southwest flow tomorrow, 100 to 155 knots south of Kodiak Island, up in across the central Panhandle. And northwesterly 65 knots, eastern interior, northeast interior there along the Yukon River, and then 95 knots south-southwesterlies coming in the central Bering. And 9,000 feet, strong winds out over the western Aleutians, central Aleutians as well, otherwise 45 to 50 knots coming over the top of that ridge. And 3,000 feet, we've got northwest 40 to 45, southwest interior, westerlies 50 across St. Lawrence Island, 75 knot winds out west with some moderate chop, pretty likely there for the western central Aleutians. Kotzebue Sound, Kamishak Bay, Kodiak Island.
Greetings, Starshots. The winter hexagon is upon us again. Or is it a football? Or is it one of Link's rupees? Whatever you want to call it, this asterism is glittering high in the sky this time of year. It encompasses 6 constellations and 8 of the brightest stars visible from Earth. It is awesome in the true sense of the word. To find it, look southeast after 8 p.m. Start with the brightest star in the sky, Sirius the Dog Star. You can find it using Orion's 3 belt stars. They point right at it. And this is the bottom of the rupee. From here, go clockwise and you'll find the little dog star Procyon, then up to Castor and Pollux, the twin stars of Gemini, then to the other diamond point, Capella. Then it's back down and around through Aldebaran, the Eye of Taurus the Bull, to a blue supergiant in Orion's left foot, Rigel, and then back to Sirius. Whew. How beautiful is that? Get outside and enjoy it, and keep looking up.
The Yukon Flats National Wildlife Refuge is a refuge in Alaska. It's the 3rd largest refuge in the National Wildlife Refuge System. North of Fairbanks, it's a vast ecosystem of wetlands. What drives this refuge are natural forces of fire, ice, and water.
The Yukon Flats has got a really interesting history. Back in the late 50s, early 1960s, there was a proposal to dam the Yukon River down by Rampart, which is downstream of the Yukon Flats. And it was a hydroelectric proposal. And so in order to assess the merits of that proposal, people got together because they were a little bit concerned about what the impacts might be on the Yukon Flats, the habitat, and all the people living within the Yukon Flats Refuge. There's quite a few people living within the refuge. We have 7 villages. So in order to figure out how special the Yukon Flats was, the Fish and Wildlife Service banded over 40,000 ducks within the Yukon Flats. And using the band return information, they found out that those ducks were using 45 of the 50 lower 48 states. They were using 7 foreign countries, and they were using most of the provinces over in Canada, as well as all the major flyways down in the lower 48. And so that identified that the Yukon Flats was a special breeding area, and that information, along with a lot of other public information that was gathered during that whole process, really ensured that the dam never did go in, and thus the habitat was preserved.
So what that did is it really highlighted the national importance of this area and how important conserving this particular area is for conserving many other natural areas in the lower 48 and even across the continent.
To protect the Yukon Flats Refuge because we have responsibility towards our future generations to leave land protected in the state that it is now. The Yukon Flats is a wild place. The ecosystem is intact and functioning, and you can't find that very many places in the rest of the U.S.
The Yukon Flats Refuge is among the most important places for ducks. So each spring, millions of ducks, and in addition to shorebirds and geese, raptors and loons, they all fly to the refuge to nest and rear their young. And the reason they are attracted to this area is because it has really enriched wetlands. There are lots of nutrients in the wetlands that provide a lot of food for the growing young.
We also have a lot of predator, prey species like bears and black bears, grizzly bears, wolves. We also have a lot of moose and fur bearers that use the refuge. So overall, there's just a great diversity of both upland, lowland, and migratory bird species that use the refuge.
Most people know the Flats as a duck nursery, and that was one of the main purposes that was designed for, but a lot of recent research over the last decade has really illustrated how important it is to a variety of native endemic fish species for subsistence and recreational and commercial fisheries throughout the entire Yukon River Basin and out to supporting commercial fisheries out to the Bering Sea as well. So it supports a variety of different whitefish and salmon species, the northern pike, a little bit of everything that people rely on as cultural identities, but also for subsistence resources and where people go to recreate and enjoy being outside.
The type of recreation that you're going to find on Yukon Flats Refuge is very primitive. And what that often does is it gives people a complete break from some of the stresses of today's world. There are no cell phone towers out there. There are no roads. There are no trails. So any type of recreation that people have is entirely natural. The lands and waters within the Yukon Flats National Wildlife Refuge are open to the public to enjoy. And that's a really important tenet upon which the United States is built.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Looking at today's sea ice analysis, not a lot of change. Kind of the winds oscillating the main pack ice edge around a little bit there. Still down around St. Matthew Island and well south of Nunivak Island and also south of Cape Newenham into Bristol Bay. And not much change Cook Inlet. Still ice trying to get south of the Forelands a little bit there, but not much of an increase. Same thing for Kamishak Bay. South shore there's some ice, but really not that much. And for the coastal water forecast, light winds tomorrow on the south coast of the Panhandle out of the west at 10 knots with seas at 9 feet, 15 knots there from the west on the north coast, turning east at 15 for the eastern North Gulf Coast with seas up to 8 feet there. Small craft advisories for Lynn Canal, northwesterlies 30 knots, seas 5 feet, and north winds at 20 for Stevens Passage with still some gale force gusts going on. 4-foot seas, light winds, Clarence Strait, northwest at 10. And that'll become west at 15 for Clarence Strait on Saturday with seas at about 3 feet. And Stevens Passage, southeast 15, 3-foot seas, north 15, Lynn Canal, 4-foot seas. Small craft advisories along the south coast, west to northwesterlies, 25 to 30 knots, seas 16 feet. Southeast 20 to 30 knots on the north coast with seas 13 to 15 feet. Prince William Sound, northeast at 10 with slight seas tomorrow. Northeast 10 also for northern Cook Inlet. South of the Forelands, southeast at 20 with seas at 6 feet. Gale warnings, Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands, westerlies in both zones there. Out of the west at, westerlies 35 knots with seas around 10 feet. Small craft advisories for the western North Gulf Coast, west winds 25 knots and southwest 15 there for the eastern North Gulf Coast. Outlook for Saturday. Entire stretch of the North Gulf Coast there, northwest at 30 knots, seas 13 to 14 feet. And Prince William Sound, small craft advisories, northwest winds 25 knots with 5-foot seas. Small craft advisories also for southern Cook Inlet for northwest winds at 25 knots. Gale warnings for northwest winds at 35 knots for Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands, seas running 11 to 15 feet. Light winds for northern Cook Inlet just north of 10. And for the Bristol Bay area, right on down the north side of the Alaska Peninsula to Cape Sarachev, southwest winds 30 knots, 10 to 15-foot seas. Cape Sarachev to Sitkinak Island, they're just south of Kodiak, west winds at 30 knots, and then those 30-knot westerlies right up the east side of Kodiak Island, west 25 for Chillicothe Strait. And then on Saturday, west winds Kodiak Island 20 to 25 knots with the 25-knot winds on the eastern side of the island, and 20-knot winds from the south. Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Otherwise, the Alaska Peninsula gale warning, southeast 35 knots. Small craft advisories, Bristol Bay as winds increase from the east at 25 knots. And for Fox Islands tomorrow, mostly southwest winds, 25 to 30 knots with seas running 11 to 14 feet. Full gales there for the central Aleutians, especially on the southern Pacific side of the islands. Adak east-southeast 35 to 45 knots. Storm warnings from Amchitka to Shimi and Attu. Easterlies 50 to 55 knot winds with 20-foot seas. South 45 knots from Shimia to Kiska on Saturday, and from Amchitka south at 30 knots, southwest 30 knots, Adak and Atka. Gale warnings for the Fox Islands, Unalaska Island southeast at 40 knots with seas 12 to 17 feet, and Mac Island south 35 knots. And the southwest coast gale warnings tomorrow. Yukon Delta Coast southerlies 35 knots, otherwise south of Nunivak Island, southwest 35 knots. West 30 for St. Matthew Island, Pribilof small craft advisory, southwest 25. And brisk wind advisories for St. Lawrence Island and Norton Sound, east winds 25 knots. Norton Sound becomes light out of the west at 15 on Saturday. Brisk wind advisories continue for St. Lawrence Island, north 25 knots, and brisk wind advisories for the Yukon Delta Coast east at 30. Gale warnings for the Pribilof, southeast 35 knots, and east 40 knots for St. Matthew Island, otherwise east winds at 30 knots there along the Kuskokwim Delta Coast. Central and eastern Beaufort Sea coast, west-southwest 15 tomorrow, with the west side northwest at 20 knots, 25-foot seas from Wales to Cape Thompson. And for Saturday, westerlies 20 to 25 knots, eastern Beaufort Sea coast, a little breezier there, but northwest winds 10 knots for the west side, 15 knots for the Chukchi Sea. And for tonight, wind and snow and blowing snow. Blizzard warning continues St. Lawrence Island, Bering Strait coast through tonight, and snow and blowing snow on the increase there for the southwest coast. Otherwise, cold over the interior again and breezy through the mountain passes of the eastern Alaska Range. And for Friday, increasing precipitation along the southeast coast.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.